Good evening and happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Ghost Biker Garage. I am your host, the Ghost Biker, and I've got a great guest coming on tonight that I think everyone is going to enjoy. He's got a lot of stories to tell, and he's been investigating the paranormal for a long time. So I'm really excited to have tonight's guest on. But I wanted to take a few minutes and wish everyone a great day. Hope everyone's having a great week. I know we've been busy here getting everything set up and getting everything going for season 4, working on filming in some different locations and working on getting all that. We've also had a bunch of different events, got the new event schedule published. So if you haven't seen that, we've got that on the website as well as on the Facebook page. And hopefully there's an event scheduled in your area and that you'll come out and see me. I want to say hello to Dr. Chris Sumner and Peppy Purple Eyes. Thank you guys so much for coming on here tonight. I also want to thank and welcome all of the new subscribers that we've had come onto the page lately. We've had some new ones come onto YouTube as well as the Facebook page. And so I'd like to say welcome and thank you guys. We have the best people that watch the show and watch the seasons. And I can't thank you guys enough because, we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you so much and welcome. We're trying to get more subscribers onto the YouTube channel so that we can go live in some different formats other than just here on Facebook. And I'm about 200 people short on the YouTube page from being able to go live from locations there. I've got some really cool investigations lined up at the end of the year. And something that I had mentioned on the podcast that I was on last night, one of the questions was, will we be doing more live investigations at some of these locations? And the answer to that is yes. Probably not the locations that we're going to be highlighting in the season, but we've got some really cool places planned. And if we can get that number over 200 on the YouTube channel, we'll be able to go live on the YouTube channel as well as on the Facebook page. So again, thank you guys so much. And again, just to let you know that that's a few things that we're working on. I also want to say thank you. We did receive a few more donations to the first annual Harold Young Memorial Scholarship, which goes to benefit a student from Scott County Schools that, that will be pursuing a career in the science field. So we got a few more donations from that this week, which brings us up to just a little under $1,400. So thank you guys that have sent in for that. And we're still taking donations. We've got the P.O. box listed on the page, and we'll be continuing to do that through the year and maybe even have a few more motorcycle rides or events lined up to raise more money on that. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and quit rambling and bring tonight's guest on because, like I said, we've got some great things to talk about. He has been in the paranormal for 40 years, or actually 40 plus years. So again, he's got a lot to talk about and he's done a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Mr. Al Cooley from Ghosts in the Valley podcast on. Hey, Al, how are you?
Hello, how you doing?
Doing good. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
And thank you for inviting me. I really do appreciate this.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Why don't you've been in the paranormal for over 40 years, at least in some different, type of capacity over that time. Tell us a little bit about how you got started, because again, that was before everything was really mainstream like it is now. So tell us how you got started and some of the things you've done over those years.
Well, I got probably interested in the paranormal when I was 14, when I had my first experience in our family home for 3 years. And that was my only personal time I actually seen a ghost spirit. And then years later, I decided to make a documentary on true ghost stories from my valley, which is the northeastern Ohio, eastern or western Pennsylvania. So I went out and asked for people for ghost stories. We didn't have the internet then, so it was very limited. So I did the door-to-door knocking on newspaper columnist, Cleveland plain dealer out of Cleveland, Ohio, down to Columbus to Pittsburgh, all around independent reviews, newspaper reviews, and just ask for true ghost stories and people that would be interested in being in my documentary. I had a little bit of paranormal investigations from a friend of mine who did investigations privately, and I helped him out a lot on those. So that's when I got involved with the EVPs and dowsing rods and the K2 meters. And he actually came up with it's phenomenal. He came up with this box that kind of like combined all of that.
Wow.
Yeah, he invented something that I always said was before his time. And he went to get a patent on this device. And the person at the patent office stole his patent. So,
wow.
I mean, that's still, and as I understand this, he's still going through. This was years ago. So I'm probably kind of like retired out of actually going out and doing the actual paranormal investigations. I leave that up to you guys to do that. But I do go, and I still go to places that are haunted, or like you had mentioned before, talking to you, that you go there to try to prove, there isn't a ghost there, that maybe it's something else first. Then after you eliminate all the other scenarios, then once you tackle the spirit or whatever's in that room, then you go from there. That's how I always looked at it, and I love the way that you, the Ghost Bikers, and I see Chris Sumner's on here, and her Soul Sisters Paranormal, and her work. What's his name? I'm sorry.
I know Jake Fife and Denny O'Rourke. Yeah.
Denny O'Rourke.
Yes.
That happens when you get older. People start forgetting shit. His team, and how you guys really, you respect the building that you're, and that's very important.
It really is. And I think that the respect of the location, the respect of the entities that are in there, I think that really lends to the good evidence that a lot of us have been able to come up with, at least as far as unexplained activity, and that's what I really liked when I was talking to you, is the fact that you're a storyteller and you really cover those stories. So how was that back in the day whenever you were working on this documentary? What did you say that was, about 23 years ago when you did this?
Yeah, 1998 I started it, and matter of fact, we'll get into that story later on a couple of video clips you're going to show later from my documentary. And it really kind of brought me to life a little bit on one of the stories. And I said, I haven't been there in 23 years. And it's like 30 miles from my house. So I drove there this morning to see the changes in the scenery. So, and that was another story in itself this morning. So that's kind of, I can't wait to share that with you.
Absolutely. How was that, going and asking people, having to go door to door and ask people for their ghost stories? Were they very receptive, or were there some people that kind of looked at you like you had three heads and that it's like, what is this guy doing? How receptive were they?
Well, you're always looked at like you got three heads. But, I don't really care what other people think. I've been doing this long enough to, I do it because I love it. And there's not a whole lot of money that you make off of it. Same as podcasting. I didn't get in there to make a ton of money. I got in there because I love what I'm doing. If you don't like it, you shouldn't do it.
Exactly.
And you can tell by some of the podcasters out there that they're only around for a limited time because they just not fully in it, And same as paranormal investigators, I've seen the same thing. I've been into places where there's 2 or 3 investigation teams, and it just takes one team to screw things up. That they're not professional, they're inexperienced, they You laugh at the situation. You don't take it seriously. You don't take the building seriously. You don't take the person that died seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And that really upsets me.
Well, and you're right. It does take that one investigation to, especially if it's someone that goes into a residential case, or even if they go into a commercial or a location that may not be commercial. It takes one team to kind of create a situation that has to be cleaned up over time, or has to be sort of made right, because these entities and spirits that we're speaking with were once people. And so, you don't go into somebody's house and disrespect them inside their home. So why would you do that to just because they're not living? Why would you do that in their home?
Right. You don't get back to your question about, going door to door. I actually went, went to the media, to the newspapers, and a couple of radio spots, looking for, and I was wanting to get maybe 10, 15 stories, because I wanted to put maybe a 6 to 8, video section on my documentary, and I actually got over 100, so it was really astounding, to me, that when I say Ghosts in the Valley, I mean, the Valley is everywhere. I mean, the Valley is your place, it's Tennessee, it's Florida, it's Oklahoma, and I was just shocked on all these stories coming forward, and then when we're going to get to the Hogback Bridge later, it was one of the short stories on my documentary, and that story alone, I got 3 different stories from the Hogback Bridge, and so I tried to pick one of them, but it all led to the same thing, about a girl under the bridge. So the story might have been a little different on all 3 about the legend, but it was really exciting to me that so many people responded back to me.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a phenomenal return rate, on your call for action. I mean, because how many did you actually end up covering in your documentary?
I covered 6.
Okay. So, I mean,
looking back on it, I wish I'd have left a couple out and put a couple more in, or maybe even put 10 of them in there, but it is what it is. And I always said the best story is a story outside the story.
Yes.
I mean, you go in looking at the story and all kind of other events happen. And I wish I would have put that in, like I say, a special features of the documentary of what actually happened during the filming of each episode.
Yes.
Because just looking at, like my wife said, the one story was in there, she says, it's just boring, but she's my biggest critic, but it really is. But if you knew the story behind the story, it really is, one of the more exciting ones.
Well, and that would be hard, I would think, to kind of narrow that down out of all those stories you got. I mean, you could essentially make that into a series if you wanted to, or talk about them on your podcast. Because, again, your podcast is of the same name. It started from the documentary, correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct. And my logo, or my artwork on my podcast is done by Cheryl Heath. And she's also, I'm writing a book right now, and she's also agreed to do the cover of my book, which I'm excited about, because it's some 20-some years later, and I'm just going to stick with Cheryl because she's a good
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I apologize, my lighting just went out. So I was sitting there and I actually heard it go out. I heard the battery die.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I my area, saying, okay, I got a cross on my wall here because I do all this.
Well, you know how it is when you're doing a paranormal podcast. It always seems like, something always happens when you start talking about certain stories. And I also want to address the folks in the chat room before we get into what you were just about to say. If anyone has any questions for Al, please feel free to go ahead and put those into the comments, and we'll put them up on there and ask Al whenever, when we finish our conversation. So anyways, proceed with what you were saying. Sorry about that.
Yeah. What was I saying?
We were talking about the stories, and you were talking about you're now currently writing a book.
Oh yeah, and the book was based off my very first experience when I was 14, and it's going to be, and digging back on that, brought back old memories with because my sister and I went through the thing basically together, and it's I think it's based on all true facts that happened in my house. I added a few extra, because fiction to the book.
Mm-hmm.
But most, I'd say 98% of it is fact.
Very cool.
It's hard to believe. My mother didn't believe me. My father didn't believe me. Because you go through that. The people in your own family, you think you're okay. Unless you see it yourself. I'm a firm believer of that. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe it happens for a reason. Always have. Always will.
Mm-hmm.
And what other people, like I said before, judge me on what I'm not sure. And that's okay. I'm happy with what I'm doing and who I am. Absolutely.
When do you expect the book to come out?
I'm hoping like end of the year.
Okay.
Because it's taking me time. It's my first novel. And matter of fact, this week I had B.B. Griffith on my show on my latest episode, and he wrote the Vanish series. He has over thousands and thousands of books released. And he said, yeah, if I can give you an advice, finish the book. Because there's so many people that put the manuscript in their drawer. I should have did this. I should have done that. And they don't do anything, and if it fails, at least you tried. I'm always a firm believer. At least you did something. Like yourself, you're out there. You're doing something you love. You're riding your bike around the country, and you're donating your time and your body and your health on some of these events. And the same with Chris Sumner and Denny O'Rourke. They're all doing great jobs, and I try to get most of your programs in. I have a lot of people I follow. A lot of people was on my guests. I try to follow them, and when I started this out, I thought everybody would think like I think.
Mm-hmm.
That you either, when you die, you go to heaven, you go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and my very first guest was an atheist. And I was thrown back. Really, I was. Wait a minute. What do you mean? He says, no, I believe you can get rid of a spirit. That when you do that, you're killing the spirit.
Interesting.
It's not going anywhere. And that's what if you're agnostic, if you're an atheist, you would probably think that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thought again. I had other guests on that actually thought believe the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's when I had a team on from Oklahoma, then they were very rounded. I mean, they had a preacher, an atheist, and a psychic. Their team was a Buddhist. They had a lot of different members on their team, so so they can ground each other on their investigations.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how long have you been doing the podcast?
3. I'm going on 3 years. After a little more than 3 years.
Okay.
Almost 3 years, and started out with I don't know. I don't have very many followers, and but it's really it's grown, and I'm happy with my numbers. And like I said before, if the numbers drop, I'm okay. I have a lot of different topics coming up. I really met a lot of, like yourself. The people you meet on your journey. On your journey, there's so many different people. I mean, and the paranormal is such a huge field. So it's not just ghosts and spirits, and you're talking UFOs and Bigfoot and Fae, and it's just a huge field.
Yeah, and even just in the paranormal alone, you have people who specialize, in the demonology side of it, people who specialize in poltergeist, people who specialize in study of angels. I mean, there's just and then there's other people that are really into the historical side of it, and maybe not so much specialized in a part of the paranormal, but just trying new and different things to try to get communication. And so I'm like you, doing this weekly podcast was really a way to go out there and try to put more content out rather than just what I put out in October. And so I've loved it. I didn't even know if it was going to be something, and here we are, we're at episode 21. And I've really enjoyed it because I've met some of the best people, and just having these conversations really has caused me, whenever I go to investigate, to kind of think a little bit differently at times, to try different things.
And I never used trigger items, before. And I noticed you do, and Chrissy does, and a few other people I've interviewed, and it's just, wow, that's a really, I've been doing it so long, and you brought up this something, wow, I didn't hear about that, and I think that's great, especially if you're trying to talk to a child, you bring out a toy, or, whatever it is, a person that maybe smoke or, a cigarette. Or...
Yeah, because you never know. You never know what might work and what might trigger someone. And that's been the thing, that I've kind of learned over the last little bit, is there are certain things that can trigger these spirits. And on the flip side, they can kind of turn around and trigger you, if you are around them enough and give them enough information, from yourself, they can turn around and trigger you as well. So that's kind of been a cool thing that I've learned over the past year.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I was in a building one time where there's 2 other paranormal teams, and nobody could get this spirit to talk. Nobody. And I mean, between 3 teams, and EVPs weren't working, nothing was working. And I was out of the blue, the child in the room that we're trying to contacted the person in the back that wasn't even part of the teams, because she spoke Spanish, there you go. I mean, she said, stop talking to, and it's moments like that, and then you have non-believers like, oh, that didn't happen, or there's always a reason why this or this happened. You could give them all the evidence you have, and they still won't believe you. And that's okay. But I found out most places I go, I talk, that your non-believers usually are the ones that have the most questions. Are the ones that stick around to the end. I always said, because it's how you're raised. If you're raised your whole life taught that there's ghosts don't exist, spirits don't exist. If you talk to a spirit, you're nuts. UFOs don't exist. So it's if you're taught that way your whole life, and then I've always said that a firm believer, it's not till it happens to you that you really maybe get a kick in the butt. That maybe there is something out there other than there's life after death.
Exactly. And that's what I'm always telling people, because for me, I don't try to convince them that there are spirits out there. My goal is, it's really hard to change someone's opinion of something, whether it be, on spirits, religion, political, whatever. It's really, most of the time, you're not going to change someone's belief structure. But my goal is to go out, tell the best story I can tell, and as accurate as I can tell it, and to go in and give my best effort in trying to communicate and thinking outside the box, trying different experiments, because it may seem kind of stupid when you kind of sit and think about it, but there are no stupid experiments, because you don't know what might work. And so in taking all of that, analyzing the evidence, and then putting it out there, my goal is to just present to you, this is evidence that I can't explain. It's up to you to do what you want with it and believe it. And a lot of the time, I have a lot of skeptics that reach out to me and ask questions, because I'm a firm believer, kind of like what you said earlier about experiencing a situation. I'm a firm believer that, I can take what I've caught on video, but unless you're in that personal experience and they're in the moment, that's really hard to show. And a lot of people, if they're skeptical, they're not in that personal moment. And so that is sometimes kind of hard to explain and to convince of that.
Exactly. 100%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
And looks like we've got DC O'Rourke on the podcast. Hey, DC. And he says, if you guys haven't listened to Al's podcast, give it a listen. And I wholeheartedly agree with that because, like I said, I know you've had some great guests on there. I think around the time that I was on, didn't you have, and I can't remember the name of the folks, but didn't you have the folks who were on the new Unsolved Mysteries?
Oh yeah, I did thank you, DC, for your comments. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did an 8-part series on the Berkshire's UFO, which was aired on the Unsolved Mysteries, which is released through Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I reached out to these people that were on the show, expecting maybe to get 1 or 2 to respond back to me. I was blown away when almost they all contacted me.
Really?
My personal email, called my phone, my private number. I interviewed the director of the show from Netflix. That was exciting because he was going on another shoot in another country. Getting these people on the show and talking to people from Netflix. And I had an experience with one that really sent her vibes through my computer and blew my computer up. Basically, she took out my Windows, the whole software that she was on, the whole program. And then she calls me immediately back and says, "Did I do that?" And I said, "Yes." And so I interviewed her again, and I got advice from another podcaster, to what he had to do with her was go outside the episode, go outside the recording, and do an analog, and then come back in, and you'll have better luck. And I did that, and it worked. So yeah, it was really exciting having all these people come on my show. Not only that, was getting the calls from the. I had a 1-800 number come up with the government. You know how many phone calls you get to the United States, and then another spam, hung up. Same number, hung up. Same number, hung up. So, what's it? He's relentless. I said, "Hello." I said, "Don't hang up on me. I'm a United States pilot from the Navy. And I chased a UFO. So
Wow.
I work for the Pentagon right now, and I can't give you my name, but I will tell you that." And he corrected me on one of the stories I did. I said, "Okay, that's cool. I'm just giving you the facts I got from the release from the government, And he says, "Well, that's not true. I was there. I chased it. I know." And so we talked for quite a while, and stuff like that's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And in the context I get from outside of happened in Massachusetts, and the context I got outside of there, like it's from New York, Pennsylvania, on this very same night, September 1st, 1969. So, when they're saying it happened right about the same time in New York, and because these things can travel extremely fast, and so that was that I just want to do a 2-part series. I ended up doing an 8-part series, and I do one like every other week. I ended up doing it for every week for like 8 weeks. That was a lot of work because trying to. When I did my roundtable, I tried to get ahead, like you're sitting there at a round table, so I'm talking to all these people. It was put together over like a 2-week period where I tried to put their audio clips together and make it look like we were in the room together. That was my intent, and I think everything came out really. I'm so proud of that episode. I'm going to go back there again. I'm going to the Berkshires there, probably the beginning of August. I'm going to do maybe a report from there.
Yeah.
From the chef. Here we go again. From the bridge. south of Berkshires. And I'm going to do a report from there and get to meet some of the people that were on the show.
That will be very cool. Is this are you going to try to do it with video?
Yes. I'd like to maybe do maybe even a live stream from there.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I remember watching the revamp of Unsolved Mysteries and seeing that story, and that was just a fascinating episode. Unsolved Mysteries that's the one and only show when I was younger that really scared me and really creeped me out and really kind of inspired me and got me interested in really all things supernatural and unusual and true crime. And so I was excited to see the revamp come back out. I don't like it as much as the original just because nobody's creepier than Robert Stack. But I loved that, and I really liked their episode that they did on that. And so when I heard that you were doing that, and again, that was around the time that I was on your show, and very good job, very well done, and very interesting series that you did on that.
Yeah, they were saying, excuse me, if it would work without Robert Stack, and I thought it did. I thought it worked very well. And there was other great shows on there besides, the Berkshires. And the director, Marcus Clark, he also directed a couple other episodes, and we got into the paranormal on one of the other episodes, and that was very interesting, and so there was a lot that came out of that 8-part series. And then again, you get people who don't believe in UFOs, but when you have the government right now that for years have been covering up, and I have backed on that they've been covering up a lot of events, even in my own area, that happened in '94 in Trumbull County, Ohio, where we had law enforcement chasing the UFOs from Ohio to Pennsylvania, 10 different departments or 15 different officers, and they're told the next day to report it's a weather balloon. And what the thing was, 2 of these officers that chased this thing were friends of mine. So, when I hear from a police officer what they saw, I take it pretty seriously,
Absolutely. Do you think we're kind of on the cusp of finding out some really interesting information on this?
I don't think so because I think they lie. I would love to think we're on a cusp. I'd love to think they would come out and tell you, but do you think the government's going to really do that? I don't think so, because, and I said this on another episode, that if we couldn't handle a toilet paper crisis last year under the COVID,
yes,
are you going to handle a UFO, in your neck of the woods, or maybe taking out power grids? I think they have that capability. And there's so many different stories. I had another guest on who had written a book on the crashes and landings of the UFOs. He was very interesting. Born of Jews. And so, he had so much information in that book. Usually I always buy the book. Whoever is on my show, I'll buy their book and I promote their book. And I think that's like I said before, that was the main thing. My best part of having this podcast is meeting all these different people, all their stories, and I'm not here to judge them. I'm just here to, I'm like someplace they can vent to, that they can tell their story, that I'm not going to call them a nut.
Absolutely. I like your approach that you take on your podcast. Obviously you're a believer in the paranormal, but you really take the approach of, here's this podcast, I've got these questions, I've got this avenue for you to get your story out there. And it seems to me you take I don't want to say an unbiased opinion, but you take the neutral route, I guess, and give people the opportunity to tell their paranormal stories, tell their their supernatural stories, UFOs, Bigfoot, what have you. And that's a really great approach because the thing that I've seen the most, and I've had one musician I've had on my show in particular, she has some spiritual gifts, and she's a believer, and she also performs at a lot of the different venues that I have events at. And her biggest comment was she was excited and happy to be around people who believed the same way. And so I think the fact that you create that avenue for people to share their stories is just an awesome thing. And again, I echo DC O'Rourke when I say that definitely if they have not checked out your podcast, they definitely need to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you want, we can go ahead and get into some of the videos that you've sent. And like I said, if you're just going to want to give us a recap. So this is from your documentary, Ghosts in the Valley. Mm-hmm. And this is 3 of the stories?
3 of the 6, yeah. Part of the stories, I took clips out of the documentary.
Okay.
And, the main parts of it. I think what we're starting with the train track.
Yes, we're going to be talking about the train tracks one. Well,
this was an unusual story. This is one that came from Canton, Ohio, and the gentleman was John Gardner, and he loved to walk railroad tracks. That's what he did to take the edge off, so to speak. And so he walked the one in Brookfield. He came to Brookfield, Ohio, and during that episode, like I said, I went out to an agency in Youngstown, a modeling agency, and I worked with Linda Weaver. She gave me a lot of her actors and actresses. And I thank you, Linda, for that. But this one, I didn't get him out of modeling. I went to, like I said, the newspapers, and his dad was the editor of one of the reviews. Mm-hmm. And so I got him out of that one. So it starts with John Kroner. John Kroner was my actor in this, and his job was to walk down the railroad tracks, and he always ends up at the same spot that he started without turning around.
For some reason, I'm trying to pull up. Let me see if it'll do it this way. I may have to pull it up a different way. When I go to try to share the video, for some reason, it's not letting me. It's blacked it out, but I'm going to try it this way to pull it in there. If you'll bear with me, you can continue telling your story there.
The thing is, when you're watching him, there's so many things that happen after that shoot. So once you look at the shoot, this railroad crossing is one of the most dangerous railroad crossings in Ohio. It has a lot of accidents there, a lot of deaths there, because there's no flashing lights. If you look at the video, there's no flashing lights at this crossing. There's no crossing arms. It's just a board up with 2 railroad crossings on. That if you're going down this road at night, there's no street lights. You come upon this because it's a country back road. You're coming up to the tracks, and bam, you're into that train. So that was number one, and I'd like to get some more ghost stories from that area because I know there's tons. So they say that every full moon, there's a woman screaming in that area.
Gotcha. Well, looks like this is going to work doing it this way. So let me maximize this, and we'll go ahead and start this one. This one is called Train Tracks. Let me see if I can maximize that up there. Can you hear it okay?
John Gardner from Canton, Ohio, had an obsession for walking abandoned railroad tracks. He would search for miles for the right track to walk. On this Sunday afternoon, he found his dream track in Brookfield, Ohio. John would sit by the tracks and rest before each journey, a journey that sometimes takes hours to walk. On this summer day, he starts out on his journey. Carrying nothing with him, he enjoys the beauty all around him. was now almost noon and starting to get warmer. John was starting to notice that the track was looking different to him. 3 hours later, John decided that he would walk 1 more hour and then return back. He felt like there was something behind him, so he turned to look and saw nothing. Then out of nowhere, a train was beating down upon him. He started to run, but could not get off the track. The train was coming faster. Before he knew it, the train was gone. He never jumped off the track, and yet the train never hit him. As he sat down to collect his composure, he looked over and saw his truck. He was right back where he started from. How did he get there? John Gardner never walked another track after this.
Yeah, if you notice, there was no flashing lights, no crossing guard, and but the thing about that story, I want to say outside the box, outside the story, was that day there was prisoners that escaped from a local jail, and they were in that area that we were in. So the activity there with the police was pretty active. And plus, there was a murder that took place there where a girl was killed in that area where he was walking. So they say that her voice is heard screaming in that area.
Wow.
But that train, as you see, there was supposed to be no trains that day. There has been never been a train on that track on a Sunday. We don't run on Sundays. So I asked the neighbor who was nearby, are there any trains today? Because I don't want to put my actors in jeopardy. She said, no, I've been here for 5 years. There's never been a train on the track. Well, as I'm doing the filming, I told John, turn around, look like you see a train coming, like you got a scared look on your face, and start running. Well, he turned around, he had this look on his face, and I was, this dude is good, I turned around, and there was a train coming at me, So as you seen that train, that first clip of the train coming, that's how close I got off the track, grabbed my tripod, got off the track. But when the train went by, I'm looking, where's John? Because I don't see John on this side of the track. I'm thinking, I hope he jumped on the other side of the track. He didn't fall. The train didn't hit him. My heart's beating like 1,000 miles an hour. The train goes by. There's no John. Where's John Croner at? Yeah. I'm like, and the neighbor comes running down the street like, there's never been a train on this track, Well, there was today, And so John comes out of the woods, zipping his zipper up. I'm like, oh my God, he's up scared the crap out of me. So I'm like, man, I thought you were dead. And, so that's just another story, And then when I went this morning I haven't been there in 23 years. It's about 30 miles away from my house. I drove there this morning just to look at it because I know the show was on. You might show this. And they actually put up the railroad crossing and the flashing lights on the pole. And while I was there, I was talking to a Brookfield police officer that was having his lunch there. And he confirmed about the screaming on the full moon, every full moon. And Yeah, he said, yeah, there's a lot of interesting stories from this train track, you know.
Very cool. So was this one of them? Kind of like a local legend,
Yeah, it's like a local legend that there's
or
one
local story.
local story, yeah, where actually even walking the tracks that you end up in this same spot, but the track doesn't go in a circle. You know, the track goes from there to actually Lake Erie, you know, all the way up north of Ohio. It's a long track, you know, so there's no way in hell you're going to end up in the same spot unless you turn around.
Right.
There's a lot of stories that came to me that they never turned around and they're in the same spot.
So sort of lost time, kind of.
Lost time. So where did that time go?
Yeah.
You know.
That those have always been kind of fascinating to me. Between missing 411 and lost time, those have always fascinated me and have always been sort of what spooks and scares me more so than paranormal investigating, just because that it's so different. Joe Shortridge asks here, Ohio Valley, and Joe is located in Ohio as well, but he's up on the Toledo side.
Oh, Northwest. Yeah, I'm on the other side, Joe. I'm on the we're by Youngstown. I'm actually between Youngstown and Cleveland. Yeah, we're really close to the PA border, so.
Gotcha. So the next one, let me get that one queued up because we'll do it the same way. That one you said the Hogback Bridge, or no, that the house trailer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let me get that blown up.
This is almost the same scenario. The guy was in Cleveland. He works for IBM, and he's stuck in a cubicle all day. And at his home, he has a path that goes through the woods, and it's another one. You know, you get off your stress from walking, you know, through the woods, and it comes upon this trailer that's never been there.
Okay.
Billy Joe just moved to Cleveland, Ohio from West Virginia. He worked with computers all day. Every evening, Billy Joe would walk the same path in the woods outside his home. Hiking relaxed his mind, he would say. One evening, he came upon a house trailer on the other side of a bridge that he walked across every day. He never saw this bridge before, and it looked like it's been there for a while. As he walked across the bridge, staring at the house, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Where did it come from, and how did it get here? ran back to his house to get a camera. He returned with it in his back pocket, but the house was gone, vanished.
Well, sir, I was taking my evening hike like I usually do after work. Going through the woods and everything, take my usual path. I come up to the bridge. Well, at this bridge, I see this house on the other side. This house was never there before. I mean, I've traveled this route several times. I cross the bridge and I go up to this house and look at it. It's kind of strange. I walk to the side. Finally, I was like, I've got to go get a camera or something, take a picture of this house, because it's never been there. So I run across the bridge, and I get home, and I get my camera out, and I run across, and it's not there. It's like vanished, thin air. You know something? I have yet to see the house again.
So, what's your theory?
The theory is that that was an interesting story in itself. A building there. I've had numerous of those. I don't know if you've come across those, or something's there and it's not there. It could be a house, could be anything. This one was the trailer in the woods, and it just so happened that my sister-in-law's boyfriend at the time had this big, huge property, and he said I could use his property to do and he had a trailer on his property. So let's use that. That's perfect, So it fell on my hands. But I found out afterwards that the trailer he's looking at was actually haunted.
Oh, really?
Right. So, it was like, he said to me, he didn't go up on the porch today. I said, no, he didn't. He just walked around the trailer. Of course, you never told me the trailer was haunted. I wouldn't have had him go in there, And he said, oh, yeah, it's extremely haunted, So,
Wow.
that was another story, outside the story. And that was Edward Messenger that did the woman actor for that. And I got him out of the modeling agency out of Youngstown. She has some great actors there, and he's one of them, and I thank him for that.
And Joe Shortridge also says that he's going to be in. Now I'm not sure. I don't want to butcher the name. Is that Cuyahoga?
Yeah, Cuyahoga Valley. Yes, that's not far from me. Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe
nice.
Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe has a podcast, 222 Paranormal Podcast, and he covers a lot of great topics. And your shows remind me of each other's show. Yeah, he's definitely another good one to watch. And so on the third one we were talking about, let's see, that one was the Hogback Bridge. What, you want to set up that clip as well?
That one was my most popular, I think. That was the one when I set off for ghost stories. I got 3 on that one. And it's basically about a girl that was killed under the bridge. And the legend is, if you go up to the bridge, the main legend is if you go up to the bridge and you stop at midnight, has to be around midnight, and you get out of your car, put your keys on the bridge, and you get back in your car will not start. And she's actually in the back seat of your car.
Okay.
the ghost. But the one I went with was the one where a gentleman was going to the bridge, and she's on the bridge. So
Okay.
he can't go any further because she's in front of him, but she disappears in front of him. He looks both sides, and she's not there, and some stories are she's in the bottom of the bridge, but she comes out with a green lantern, and she's also in the back seat of the car.
Okay.
So that leads up to that. And
Okay. We'll go ahead and start that one.
Pepper Jones of Niles, Ohio, was on his way to visit a friend in Heritage, Pennsylvania. The scenery was beautiful, and the temperature was warm and sunny. He decided to take a shortcut and got lost. Pepper had no idea where he was. As he was traveling down the steep back road, the temperature was dropping fast. His heart was pounding as he was picking up speed going downhill. Pepper had this feeling as if something or someone was watching him. He was coming upon a single-lane bridge but looked away at something moving in the woods. Pepper focused his attention back to the bridge. He sees a young lady dressed in black standing in the center of the bridge, staring like glued. She was standing as if in a trance. He could feel a cool breeze blow down his back. As quickly as she appeared, she was gone, vanished. Pepper looked for her, but could not find her. He could still hear strange noises coming from the woods. As he drove off, he could still feel her eyes fixed upon him.
I love stories about bridges like that.
And that bridge was it was unreal because, well, to start out, I want to thank Kelly Cook. She was my actress who played the ghost. I also got her a little modeling agency. She's now a professional actor in Hollywood, and so she used my video, and I think she weathers as a stepping stone, I guess. But and then the weird thing about that day was the guy that played Pepper Jones never showed up. Was supposed to fly and didn't show up, and she knew the area.
It's 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't too familiar with that area. See, Denise Lindsay had put in the chat room. Is that Hermitage?
I was about to pull that comment up, actually.
Yeah, he said it was in Hermitage, PA. I don't know if you know about the hogback. Actually, it's like a regular residential area. Nothing out of the ordinary until you get to the hollow, as you would say, going down, and there's the bridge, and there's so many reports that comes out of that area. Well, like I said, my actor didn't show up, my lighting crew didn't show up, my sound person was doing so didn't show up. So it was just me, Kelly, and Arthur. Arthur Adams played he was going to be her bodyguard under the bridge because she said, I want somebody under the bridge. I'm not standing there by myself, because she knew the area, she knew the legend. I said, okay, no problem. I have Arthur coming. He's a big dude. He'll be under the bridge for you. It turned out, she said, well, if I'm here, I might as well do it. If you're not going to be gone that long, I'll stand on the bridge, because I needed Arthur to drive the car. I'm outside the sunroof with the cameras. And I was like, it was a tough situation. And it took me about 3 takes, and the hardest part was getting her, because I wanted her to stare at the car without blinking. So for me to zoom into her without blinking, it was tough. And as soon as we were done, she said she wanted to go. She was ready to get out of that area. And I still needed more shots to take. I told Arthur, go ahead and take her back. I thanked her, and I stuck around by myself. I went down, and that's where I got some of the pictures in the woods. And it was, that's where the story outside the story, I didn't really sense the only thing while we're taping, but after the fact, it's when I'm walking in, I heard a growl like all around me, and something you can't really explain. Then my ears, somebody was flicking my ears from behind. A really big flick. Pushed me from behind the shoulder. Cold breeze going through me. It's like 90 degrees that day. But it was a cold breeze. It's like air conditioning turned on you. It was very strange. I said, come on, Arthur, come on back and pick me up, And I ended up walking out that road back into my equipment. And, so that was, it was interesting.
And, and Dee Dee makes an interesting point about, she says it would be intimidating to reenact a ghost story at the actual location. Cool, but still a bit intimidating. And that's a great point, because when I was a member of a team, we would try to do reenactments sometimes whenever we would be at these locations to try to do as trigger items. And one of the actual ones that we did was at Octagon Hall in Franklin, Kentucky. And the family, they were terrorized by the Union soldiers there, and because they were Confederate sympathizers. And from the way one of the stories, because many things had happened there, but one of the stories was that the Union soldiers had come in and they were going to take over the house. And so we did this full-scale reenactment. I think at that time there was 7 or 8 of us that were there, and I was the only female on the team at that time. So, of course, I played the woman of the house. And, they come in and the soldiers would come in, push the woman out of the way. And the guys on the team didn't hold back. And I tell you, there was such a different feeling. Things actually ramped up because we sold it pretty hard. And things actually really ramped up just after either we didn't reenact it correctly and they were not happy about it, or it really kind of stimulated something. And I had never experienced anything like that. And it was part of a 2-night investigation, and we made sure we did it at the end of the second night. And it really did stir things up. So to that point, it is intimidating and a tough reenacting inside
really
of a location.
Yeah, and I was not most of the stories in the video weren't from the actual location. That the Hogback Bridge in Hermitage, Pennsylvania, was the actual bridge, was the actual location, and it was also when I was there doing the pre-taping before I brought the actors in. I actually talked to a Hermitage cop was asking me, what am I doing on the bridge? I didn't have any permit or anything. I was new to this, about getting permits, and I learned a lot during that documentary, cost-wise, everything. But the police officer told me his own version, what he heard of the legend, which was, a young black girl was raped and killed under that bridge by the Ku Klux Klan, I believe. a white supremacist group. He said,
Wow.
yeah, well, her family was killed years before, so her friends took her there as a memorial for her family because her family was killed there and hung under the bridge.
Wow.
And so the legend is she went there to pay tribute to her family, and her friends set her up. So that she was raped and hung under the bridge.
That's horrible.
So that was the police officer's rendition of it. I didn't get that one when I was searching that. That was something new.
Mm-hmm.
But I went there last year. I did a follow-up on that story with some friends of mine. And
Mm-hmm.
they changed the whole, I mean, the bridge has changed. It's no longer a wooden bridge. It doesn't have the rails on it. So it just didn't seem to me the same. Like maybe it wasn't even haunted. You know, I didn't get that feeling, you know.
Mm-hmm.
As I did the first time, when I was there, I really felt there's something here.
Yeah.
The second time I went, I didn't feel that, you know. So I was telling my friend this, you know, a few months after that. And he came back with me and said, I went there at midnight and did the key thing, and it worked. My car did not start, and she was in my back seat. And I says, okay, you know, because so I guess with the new bridge, it still works. So I tried that myself. It didn't work for me, but that they filming that at the exact location, yeah, Dee Dee, you're right. It's hard to get that location, you know, and get the feel, and it was enjoyable, really, doing all those videos and getting people's stories. And there's so many I went to. It was very possessed on the demonic side, and I didn't touch that one. You know, I have only a couple of those, and I don't deal with that side.
Mm-hmm.
I have people that I can contact to do that, but that wasn't something I'll do.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's really cool about this is the fact that these are not big commercial locations, and this fits exactly into what I always tell people with Ghost Biker, where it's like these locations are in your backyard or outside your back door, where you know, there's so many local legends, so many areas. I mean, and the response rate that you got is just proof of that there's stories all around us in these areas. I mean, I'm sure if I decided to just take East Tennessee and reach out to not even the larger towns, but even the small communities, I would probably have so many stories that I couldn't cover all of them just in East Tennessee small communities in my entire lifetime, you know. So that's what I love those local regional stories. And when I say local, I don't just mean local to where I'm at, but local to where you are, local to where Dee Dee is, you know, that sort of thing. Those are what I truly love, because, you know, they are well known. And, you know, you do find it gets really difficult when you start putting these out there because, like you talk about with the bridge, there's several different iterations of those stories. And so whenever you have, you know, I know Dr. Sumner with Soul Sisters just released a video last month on haunted bridges. And I think she covered 5 or 6.
The Crybaby Bridge? She did that?
I don't believe she did the Crybaby Bridge. She did the one in Gettysburg. She did 2 in Tennessee. She did 1 in Florida. She covered 4 or 5 different states. And if she's still on here, I know that she'll chime in here in a few minutes. But, you know, she covered that. And just the stories, once you go digging into them, you know, it's wild just how many iterations of those stories and how hard it is sometimes. You know, some of these stories you can go in and actually find newspaper stories on different things that happen. But when you start talking about clandestine type activities and stuff that happened, there was a lot of things under these bridges that didn't go reported in the newspapers. And it's really hard to find information. And once that generation that was around when these activities happened, once that generation passes on, so does the true story. So it's so important to share that.
That's why I love the Ghost Biker explorations you have going on, and
Thank you.
the seasons you were releasing on the places you went. I think one was Cleveland, Tennessee. So
Yes.
yeah, I like that one a lot. I mean, so yeah, I try to follow as much as I can.
Thank you.
I think
That
there's
was
no Crybaby Bridge. There's a few Crybaby Bridges.
there are the one that I was aware of is down in Alabama, but then I saw a post just the other day. Somebody was talking about Crybaby Bridge. I think it was in the one they were talking about was in Ohio.
Right, I think it's down by Columbus.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to go to that one. And matter of fact, we're going to go to the very Mansfield Reformatory here in August. Plan on going down to Florida and seeing in the July the Hotel Floridian. I think it's in Tampa. So hopefully I get to see that one. And I guess we're going to go to Massachusetts, the Berkshires. So I've got a few places on my list I want to hit this year since it's
awesome.
You know.
Well, Mansfield, I was up there. I didn't get to investigate there, but I did a really cool thing. I guess it was about 5 years ago. I did the Shawshank Hustle, and that was so much fun, because one of my friends that is from Ohio, she's like, oh, and I'm an avid runner. And so she's like, you need to come up here and do this Shawshank Hustle. And I think it was 6 miles, I believe. And it was centered, of course, around the Shawshank Redemption. And so in my mind, I was thinking, oh, yeah, I'll go run in Ohio. I'm used to Tennessee running. So
there's a lot of cool places, man. I mean,
absolutely.
It's hard to say. Even if you're up in this area, there's the Hillview Manor in Sharon, PA. Newcastle. It's really cool to go to that one.
I've heard people talk about that. Yeah.
There's just so many places around this area, around your area. I know that the Appalachians are filled with ghost stories that I've had people on talking about in Tennessee, Kentucky.
Yes, absolutely. Becky, I had her on the show. She's with Homespun Haints, and she doesn't live in Tennessee now, but she's a fellow East Tennessean, and she is exactly right. It is so full of ghosts, just stories, from the Appalachian Mountains and everything. So,
in a couple of weeks, Homespun, and I got them off of your show, so.
Awesome! Awesome.
They're so much fun. I love their podcast too.
Yes, they. Again, I'm really partial to people who share the homespun type stories and are doing what they can to put that out there. And I love their podcasts. So I look forward to seeing them on your show. Or hearing them on your show.
I don't do very much live. I'd like to change that, in the coming year, to do more YouTube, be more involved with video. But I'm still the old school, like old radio. Because back in the day, it was really hard to get whatever you're interested in, like say hot rods, So for a guest to come on a show and talk about hot rods, so. That was far in between. Now you got so much tools in front of you that you can use to get to what you like. Paranormal, cooking, or whatever your thing is. As a matter of fact, I had one guest on said her brother was running she's a hillbilly. I don't want to offend anybody. Hillbilly cooking show, and I loved it. It wasn't on that, and he had more downloads in 3 weeks than I had like in 2 years. So I'm like, oh my god, man, you got to stick with it. Was like simple things like how do you make a hot dog? How do you make soup? How do you make boil an egg? And I just loved it because it was so real and. And it reminded me so much of my uncle. All my relatives live in Alabama, from my dad's side, and when you talk about vittles, it's I make up them vittles, it's like homespun Hanks. I know what they were talking about, but I know a lot of people that weren't from the South or know what a haint was. You have to explain yourself.
Exactly.
They're really, really good. And so some of the guests I get from, then I was looking at DC O'Rourke's, he has like the Chrissy Sunrise, I believe you were on there, and without even knowing, so you go to people, we're kind of like connected, not even knowing it, and it's really fascinating to me, the paranormal, and I love what I'm doing, and I know you do too. So does Chrissy, DC, and everybody else on here. Thank you for tuning in and giving you all a shout out in the chat room, and I appreciate it. I really do.
Yes, thank you everyone for that's joined us here in the chat room with your questions and your comments, and thank you for watching and sharing this tonight, and thank you, Al, for coming on and taking the time, because you hit the nail on the head that we are a as far as the paranormal goes, it's a small community, and it's awesome to see the connections and see everything grow. And again, for me, that's been the best part. And that was the goal with this show, was to actually, especially with the pandemic and everything going on, to create something that everyone can, that the people who follow my show can find other people that, are putting great content out and taking the time to do what they're doing and doing their thing, and so just introducing the audience that watches this to an audience of other shows. So it's worked out really good, and I'm glad to hear that there have been other connections made in the process.
And you learn too. It's like a learning experience too. So you might learn something that you didn't know. As I did with the Sugar Adams, and the I guess your guest last week had on the that grid with the
yes.
I thought that was really cool. I never used that, but I thought that was really. That was interesting. And that was a great show last week too.
Thank you. Yeah, Bill Wilkerson. He's wonderful, and I know he's having that event on July 31st.
I missed that. I wish I could go down to that. I'm going to be down in Florida that weekend. The whole week, really. And then I was like, man, it's always it figures out. It's going to be come on, Bill, do another weekend.
Exactly. It's going to be a really big event. And speaking of events and things like that, I'm going to run down just a few that I've got coming up. Like I said, I finally got my schedule posted, and I've already got some changes that I've got to make to that. So be uploading that, but don't have anything else going on here in June, but July is chock full of stuff. I'm going to be in my hometown in Oneida, Tennessee, several weeks or several weekends there. I'm going to be in the, if everything works out just fine, I'm going to be in their 4th of July parade, which is going to be on the 4th that evening. And then on July 10th, I'm also going to be in Oneida, Tennessee. They're having their Veterans Appreciation their Veterans Appreciation Day and History in the Streets, which they are going all out for this event to really highlight the history of Oneida, Tennessee. And this is being put on by the Music on Main event. So I'm going to be hosting a Ghost Biker meet and greet there. I'm also going to have some of my drawings from the local area. And we've got a lot of great people there. I think they're going to have their history booth set up to where you can bring in some of your old pictures and have those scanned. We got a lot of information about that, but that's definitely going to be a great event that's going to take place on July 10th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time. And then the very next weekend, July 17th, I'm going to be up in Ann Arbor, Michigan at the Michigan Bigfoot Conference, which is put on by the Bigfoot Conservatory, or the Cryptid Conservatory. And that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be speaking about the paranormal there because I'm not very knowledgeable on Bigfoot, but I'm learning a lot more, and I'm really looking forward to hearing. They've got some great speakers from all over the country that's going to be speaking there. I don't know my time yet, but I know it's going to be the 17th of July, and we're also working on getting a Harley event scheduled for that Sunday. And I don't want to quite give a date just out yet, but I'm going to be doing an investigation up there in Michigan, which hopefully we're going to be able to broadcast a little bit of that live. And that'll be probably the first part of that next week. And then also at the very end of the month, July 31st, I'm going to be in Franklin, Kentucky at the Old Stone Jail for their big second annual paranormal meet and greet. If you're not familiar with this, I know we've got folks coming from all over.
I've heard about that one. Yeah.
Exactly. Coming from all over the states there. I know from they're coming as far south as Mississippi and Florida, all the way up to Franklin, Kentucky. So that's going to be a big, cool event. And then also on next Thursday night, we're going to continue with another great guest here on the Ghost Biker Garage from someone who has had, many years in the paranormal tonight. A very new person is going to be on next week.
Awesome.
A lot of you... Yeah, a lot of you have probably heard of her, Miss Madison Smith. She was in the chat room earlier, and she's a very, very young investigator. I've been on her show, and she has met some amazing people in the paranormal field. I believe she's 12 or 13. I need to go back and look at my notes.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it is so cool. Her dad is so supportive of her, and I have not got to meet her in person yet, but I was made aware of Madison. I think she was back when I believe she was 10 at the time, and no fear, and a lot of brains. That girl is a very good investigator. So it's going to be a good show next week. We're looking forward to having her on. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I saw her in the chat room earlier, but she may not be with us right now. But I know she's a busy girl with her softball and everything. So anyways, I think we're going to go ahead, wrap this up. And again, I want to thank Al for taking the time to come on tonight and sharing his stories with us. Make sure you go on and check out his podcast, Ghosts in the Valley, which can be found on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcasts.
Exactly. Anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Spreaker, iHeart, SoundCloud. Anywhere you get your podcast. But yeah, if you're ever up in the Ohio Valley, come up and give me a call. We'll have coffee or something, Chris. Anybody else in the chat room?
Absolutely.
Talk to paranormal and have a good time.
Would love to. Absolutely. I'm going to take you up on that.
Sure.
And if anyone wants to watch, can they watch your documentary? Is it online or?
No, I got to figure out how to do that. Got to keep in mind when I released this documentary, it was on VHS, and even though I did use some digital cameras at that time, it wasn't a big thing. DVD.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about before even Blu-ray. It's like when I transferred it to DVD, I had to go to a different format,
mm-hmm.
and it never did make Blu-ray. But I'm thinking, people don't even watch Blu-ray anymore. DVDs
right.
anymore. Everything's streaming.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to figure out how I can do this. So if anybody has any suggestions on how I could put it out there, and I was thinking about doing. Matter of fact, at the end of the Ghost in the Valley I think it was around 2013. It says, coming in 2013, Ghost in the Valley 2. And I never did, and never made it, and so I would like, maybe do another one someday, and do it in the modern format as streaming.
Absolutely. And you've got the stories for it. So
yeah, I'm still old fashioned. I still got a 1955 jukebox in my other room that I'm still vinyl, and but I understand. Things change. And people change, time changes.
Well, pretty much. Once and I was complaining about this because I just had to order some new equipment for my videoing, and it's like the minute you order the new equipment, it's out of date and obsolete, and so it's really hard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, I just ordered a couple, and I was actually thinking about kind of doubling up because I'd ordered a gimbal that I really liked, and because my other one it bit the dust. And when I find headphones or a gimbal or something that I really like and I'm comfortable with, I want it to last a really long time, because when it doesn't, I don't want to learn something new. And there's just something about when you're doing these investigations, getting set up doing the recording and doing the actual investigation, you want to cut down and streamline as much as possible. And so I was like, I hope I love this gimbal, because otherwise, if I like it, I want to order more. But then again, as I get new cameras, the gimbal doesn't always fit the camera. So
you're a photographer, so I know you do great jobs. I've seen some of your drone work. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So I know you do great work. You're a great artist too, and gotta give you a shout out there, because you don't talk much about that, but you're a fantastic artist.
Thank you.
Things have changed so much, and I have to get with the times. But and you're doing great with this. I do mean that.
Well, thank you.
Your photography is fantastic, and like I said, when I started out was all VHS, and then slowly went to, I sold thousands of the VHS and the DVD, but then it kind of dried up after that. I was really proud. I mentioned earlier, but I did enter the documentary into a couple of film festivals. Came in second in the Youngstown State University for arts.
That's very cool.
I was excited about it, because I really didn't think mine added, paired up to the other ones I was watching, were phenomenal. Like, wow, I can even, and everybody congratulate me. This is a great job. And when I talk about the cost, from production to publishing to copyright to, oh my God, and just distribution and the release forms and the artist fees. It's so many things to go through, and so I got to give a shout out to my wife. She stood behind me all these years on my music. Thousands of dollars I spent on recording studios, writing songs and poetry and books, and writing a novel now. And so she's right there with me. So and she's not a big paranormal person. So when I go somewhere for check a place out, you can go on your. So I was really surprised when she brought up the Mansfield Reformatory. I thought, wow, you really want to do that? She says, yeah, let's do it.
Well, there's so many movies and stuff that were filmed there, and so many, like I said,
years ago. But I didn't make it in because they were shut down for some reason, and so basically did a lot of talking to the guard outside the place. So this will be the first time I'm actually in the building.
Well, you'll definitely, there's a lot to it. And because I know the coolest part about what we did was we got to watch the Shawshank Redemption inside of the cafeteria room there, and to be able to hear, and see everything around, to actually be watching it in there where they filmed it. It was just very cool. Very cool.
It is always cool to see where, we were there, just like the Lizzie Borden house, it's cool. You're on it's not really cool what happened, but you're there. You can actually feel it. I don't know how to explain it. Some things can't be explained. It's just a feeling,
Yeah.
And that's what I got on most of these videos. It's maybe I come away with a different take on it because I had the feeling. I'm there. The actors that were there had the feeling. And I give a shout out to all the actors and everybody involved with. Did this.
Absolutely. There's so much involved with it, and I've had a couple different folks on that do videos, and just putting an episode out and all of that. There's a lot to it, and when you're a small crew, and I use the word crew very loosely, when you're one, sometimes two people, it's a lot.
Right, and you put a lot on your crew, as you say, if even it's one person, if it's your cameraman or whoever it is with you. And then Arthur Adams was on the Hogback Bridge, played Pepper Jones. I have to give him a shit because he helped me out so much on different locations and camera work. If he wasn't doing the camera work, he's doing the behind the scenes with the actors, having friends like that. He wasn't an actor himself, but he stepped in. And I didn't put in the part where he was actually talking about the Hogback Bridge afterwards. I just kind of left that out. But he is a great guy, and like I say, it's the people you meet over the years that you just have a lot of respect for what they've been through or what they do.
Exactly. And so, so I look forward to seeing the different. I look forward to seeing the different projects and stuff that you've got coming up with your book and everything. And we've got the links in the show notes. And again, this will re-air shortly, probably within the hour on YouTube, and then on Saturday will be on mymixtv.com. So, or no, I'm sorry, mymix1041.com. So anyways, like I said, hope that you have a good evening. And again, thanks to everyone in the chat room. And we'll be seeing you all next week. Bye, everyone.